Mic check. Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to the Herman Stewart Mentoring Show. And I am your hostess with the mostest, Herman Stewart, the mentor's mentor, the founder of Every Child Needs a Mentor. I'm really looking forward to today's session. Really looking forward to speaking to my guest who will be with us shortly. I hope that you're having a great day. I hope that you're experiencing great things today. Just really had a word on my heart. And those that are connected to me, they would have been able to see the words that I've shared earlier. And it's just really about gratitude, having an attitude of gratitude. I woke up this morning and things never went to plan. But as I was driving and I was just realizing that it's so important for me to be grateful in life. You know, I was just really reflecting and seeing that as I was driving, I was looking at the reality that there's people, somebody somewhere never woke up this morning, somebody somewhere, their eyes never opened up this morning, or someone somewhere, they couldn't move out of their bed this morning. Someone got some bad news this morning. And I just realized some of the things that are so natural to us or so normal to us, like walking, like talking, like seeing, these things are not normal for everyone. And many of us can go through different challenges in life and sometimes just be so focused on the challenge that we do not see the blessing in the challenge, or we do not see the opportunity in the challenge, or we do not see that even though we've got the challenge, this challenge is happening to us, but it can be happening for us. It can be preparing us for where we want to go in life and giving us that resilience and inner strength that we need. So as we go through life, I just want to encourage that regardless of what you're going through, know that it is so important for you to be grateful. Yes, Peter, thank you for sharing what you shared. It's so true. And George, it's so true that the world that is around us is experiencing its challenges, you know, and it's like someone said something to me before, and it was so powerful because what they shared, and they said this, they said, it's either you're a part of the solution or you're a part of the problem. And we have to ask ourselves, are we a part of the solution or are we a part of the problem? Are we encouraging things to get better? Are we speaking things to encourage improvement, or are we reiterating the problems that we see, the negativity that we see, and are we exacerbating it and making things worse? And I really believe that once we have an attitude of gratitude, it really transforms our lives. It transforms the environments we're in. It transforms the teams that we're leading. It transforms the colleagues that we're working with. It transforms the family that we're covering and helping to improve. So I just want to say thank you for joining me today. I am waiting for my guest to come, Craig Pinkney. I'm really interested in speaking to him today. He's a criminologist. He's doing some work with the Premier League. He is well loved and adored by many people in the community because he is someone that has been a champion for many people and making a difference for many people. and I know that there was some technical challenges that he was experiencing, and but we're just going to continue to be hopeful, continue to wait, and know that all things work out for the good. So while he's coming, or while he's about to attend, okay, I can see him right now. So I'm just going to add him to the stage and get him on straight away. Hello, Craig. Hello.
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 Why it's funny because you know the pressures. Get you on
Well,
it, yeah. Well,
everything's all right, you know. Everything's all right. I made him aware that he was going through some of those challenges, but you know something, you're here with us, and just really, you know, it's like what I was just saying before you came on the live. I was just talking about also having the attitude of gratitude, and realizing that the things that we take for granted is someone else's prayer. The things that we take for granted is someone else's bucket list. Do you know what I mean? And it's so important that whatever we're going through, that we just need to be grateful, you know. So that's like a word that was just on my heart today when I was just driving. My day never started out as planned, but I just really see the importance of having that kind of perspective, and being able to have that perspective that is encouraging to myself, and to know the least that I can give to myself and the least that I can give to those around me is a smile.
Yeah.
You know, and then I was just talking about you, and just saying, just so glad to have you on today. You know, and the Herman Stewart Mentoring Show is where I speak to experts, I speak to thought leaders, I speak to interesting people to find out their view on things, and it's a cordial conversation as well. You know, and just you being a criminologist, you being loved within the community, you being someone that so many people look to for inspiration, look to for answers, and because you've dedicated your life to the betterment of others, to young people, and to groups of people that are not getting justice. So just really glad to have you with us today, Craig. Just, you know, for years I've watched your work, and I've seen your work, and I am an admirer of excellence. I'm an admirer of people with passion, people that pursue their dreams. So many people talk a good game, or so many people talk about they wish their lives was better, or wish they could be doing this, or wish they could be doing that. But instead of wishing, they could be putting time into making that difference into their own lives, understanding that there is that graft, understanding that before they see mountaintops, they see valleys. And someone like you, people might look at what you're doing, but they don't see the graft, they don't see the years, they don't see the struggles, they don't see the back story. So that's why I really wanted to have you on today, and give you the opportunity to talk. So Craig, we know you're a criminologist, a youth engagement expert, you're all these different things, but could you share a bit about your work and what you do?
So in a nutshell, I feel like I wear many hats. I feel like I can't be kind of crammed into one thing. But I guess the titles that I hold, other than being a criminologist, I'm an urban youth specialist. I'm also the CEO and director of Solve Housing, which is a children's home located within Birmingham, where we have two. I'm also the director of Solve, the Centre for Youth Violence and Conflict, which is around training and development for practitioners, but also building resilience and offering therapy to children and young people. And then also I have Solve Global, which is a consultancy company, which a lot of the work you probably see me doing with the Premier League, and all of that type of fun stuff that I do within sports. And I'm a dad, I'm a member of the community, so many different hats, and I kind of like to have my hands in different things, because just to kind of set the tone, one of the things that you mentioned was excellence, and I thrive on these concepts of excellence. And partly the reason why I'm in my also final year of my PhD, because it is
well done
to the next level. And all of the kind of entities that I'm a part of, it's located in different areas of my passion. So I'm also in charity stuff, that we sponsor charity organizations through the work that we do, because I guess I came to an interesting point in my life where I was like, we sit and wait and depend upon the government to make all of these changes, where we have so many wealth of individuals that have knowledge that can collectively come together. And one of the things that I'm very keen and I'm very interested in is economics and entrepreneurship in business, and how we can leverage finance to be able to engage in some of the things in the community that you would have to wait and tender and processes when our children and young people are dying by the day.
Wow. Okay. I mean, you've just shared so much, and I need to dig into some of that. And where did this passion come from, Craig? Because what I'm seeing in front of me, who I'm seeing in front of me is, a trailblazer, a pioneer, an entrepreneur. You're doing all these different kinds of things, and I understand and I appreciate those kind of things that you're doing, running multiple businesses and going across different industries as well. But where did it come from? Like where was it birthed? Like when you was at school, or when you was growing up, or when you was young, what did you want to do? What did you see yourself doing?
I feel like it's part of my DNA. When I think about my grandparents, when I think about what my grandparents did, many people from Birmingham are familiar with my family. My grandparents were well known in the community for opening community projects, the Nightingale Project, the Muhammad Ali Center. My grandparents were pioneers within that. And then also my other grandparents that came here and, fought against systems of oppression, systems of racism, so many things that they had to fight against to create an environment for me to come. It's part of my DNA. So I can't say it's one thing that happened in my journey that triggered that. What I will say is maybe from my experiences within education that wasn't great, maybe my experiences when I left school and didn't have qualifications and didn't know where I was going to go, and found inspiration in working with people, that what was rooted within my DNA, that enabled me to acknowledge my purpose. And my purpose, give back and use my knowledge, my expertise, my charisma, my personality, everything that I have to my disposal to help my community. And where I wanted to locate that was with children and young people.
I really admire you and what you're doing, and the passion that you've got for young people, and the time that you got for young people. And it sounds like as a young person, you went through things that could have been deemed as obstacles to you becoming who you are, but ultimately they're qualifications, and they are the qualifications that qualify you to have the authority to understand and talk to young people in a way that they see it as authentic. Because what I've learned from being a mentor to young people for over 20 years now, I understand young people are authentic. They haven't learned political correctness. They haven't learned the fakeness that a lot of adults kind of customize to, or they can adapt to navigate certain environments and kind of lose their authenticity. A lot of times young people, they're very authentic, and they probably just need that guidance to be able to be directed into the right directions and having the right people around them. So I feel that it's powerful to even hear like the breadth of the things you're doing, because I'm looking and saying, when I was growing up, and the things that was around me, it was predominantly more musicians, or it was predominantly more sports people, or predominantly those kind of characters. Or even within the community, there was drug dealers, there was people that was on the other side of the law, there was entrepreneurs, but there was breaking the law. and they would have the nice things or the trappings or the things that, you know, as a young person, you can look up to and say, I would like to have that in my life. But the fact that you're doing what you're doing now and, you know, leading a group of businesses and doing what you're doing, and that is a part of the inspiration that young people can tap into. I feel that is really, really powerful. So one of the things I really wanted to touch on, and it's good that you talked about young people and children, and you know, I've got a real passion for young people and children as well, and really want to encourage and help people to be able to understand how to work with the children that they are custodians over, if they're professionals, if they're teachers, if they're leaders, if they're social workers, if they're, you know, in youth justice, wherever they are working with young people, that they could get a bit more understanding. And one of the things when I spoke to the last doctor that was on my program, and I was talking about mental health, one of the things that he sent to me, you know, when we was like doing DMs, you know, he was like saying he would have loved to be able to touch on ACEs, around, you know, adverse childhood experiences and how that can impact young people and so forth. So I would love to just find out a bit more about this word that has become very prevalent recently, this word of trauma. And I know your work is around trauma and being trauma informed and trauma practice and so forth. But break down to me what, you know, what is trauma in of itself?
Trauma is a process. It's something that happens that creates some sort of response, and that response can come out in a range of different ways. You know, they talk traditionally, you know, freeze, fight, flight, and normally the kind of responses. But I want to just kind of break it down to something that I guess our viewers can understand from the lens of a child. So previously, you just mentioned that young people see things in their community. They may not have the access to loads of other young people that may see individuals that are outside of the realm of the local shutter, the local drug dealer, you know, the local footballer that's about to make it into Blues or Aston Villa and so on and so forth. Beyond that, they don't have that opportunity to see. And sometimes in their environments in which children live, predominantly in urban environments within inner cities, where there's poverty, there's deprivation, there's issues to do with families, there's mental health, there's issues to do with not even being able to provide food. You know, the education system in the areas and community is poor. There's a lack of resource, the housing situation, there's rats everywhere. These are the things that happen in local communities. So a child that's trying to navigate in that particular environment, what they may possibly deem as very normal in their environment, they're seeing things every day, and these encounters are actually sometimes quite traumatic. So a traumatic anything to do with they're walking to school with their friend, and a young person jumps off the bus and says, "Yo, what you looking at?" Okay, that was a strange response. And that individual then just say they walk off. Now, nothing necessarily has happened, but for the fact that you approach them in such aggression is going to make a human being think, okay, that was quite strange. Now, that can do a number of things for that child. That's why I go back to those responses. And that response might be, some children might run as soon as they hear the aggression. Some children might freeze. Some children, based on the environments in which they live, might choose to say, who are you talking to? What am I looking at? And those types of responses, now I want you to think about that happening over and over and over a long sustained period of time. So you got young people at the age of 9, 10, 11, and they're going through all of that until they get to 16, 17, 18. So now me and you now are driving down the road now, and we get to the lights, and we look to the right and we see a bunch of young boys in the car, and we're looking at them thinking of some nice, little, handsome young men. I'm going to work, and they're looking at you like, why are you looking at me? And they're scared to get out the car and do something because their traumatic response is linked to something they may have happened earlier on. So going back to the point, ACEs is a accumulation of traumatic experiences that a child goes through over a sustained period of time that causes a series of responses. And when those particular adverse childhood experiences become great to a point of impacting one's emotional, psychological well-being. These are the reasons why we may see some of the things. And I think it's also important to put here that when we talk about adverse childhood experiences, it's not always to do with violence. An adverse experience can be death. I remember,
Yes.
I talk about this a lot. I remember my auntie dying. And the first time I remember going to a funeral and touching a body, I don't know why it was going to be cold. And I remember jumping, thinking, whoa. And I remember looking around thinking, and it's like I couldn't tell my dad what I just experienced, but I remember sitting in the church thinking, that was strange. She's dead. She's cold. That's an adverse experience. Another adverse experience could be, that you're having to look after a parent because unwell for a number of different ways, disability, mental health, and children having to go through these things. What is argued in the research is children that go through that's the difference, multiple adverse childhood experiences is when we start to see potentially behaviors when they go into their adolescent stage.
Okay. And I feel that this really links to your work around criminology. And I guess that you have to connect the dots between what is the motive, what is the pathology, why is someone thinking in that way, and how do you link, trauma, childhood experiences, the reactions that young people provide, whether it's in a school setting or in an urban setting or even in a jail setting. How do you link those things, and how do you even help young people or help those that work with young people to consider how they can help young people to navigate those challenges and get beyond them?
First and foremost, what I will say is criminology is sometimes quite limited as a science to answer that question.
Okay, in what way?
What criminology does is it borrows from sociology, psychology, and it gives you the apparatus to be able to utilize criminological models to make sense of the things that I engage in. So if I was to go back, let's say 10 years, I was interested in criminology on the basis of the fact that a lot of the children and young people I was working with got to their adolescent stage and ended up either killing other children and young people, exploiting other children and young people. And my motivation to ask the question was, why are they doing that? So I found throughout my PhD study why I've gone more into social sciences, because I'm more interested in psychology, I'm more interested in sociology, that I can utilize those to make better sense of what's going on. Now, to your question around trauma, work that I essentially do, the first position I take is, do I understand the environment? Do I understand the environment in which young people live in? So earlier on, I gave you the kind of pretext to what happens in some communities where there's deprivation, gentrification, and so on and so forth. So now I know the environment, then I'm also going to be quite curious to understand, okay, well, what's the educational level in the community around these particular issues? And what I find in a lot of families, their understanding of mental health generally is not great. And there's also an expectation that people are supposed to know. But then when you go into the education system, oftentimes what you find is a lot of the educationalists in those settings don't even live in the communities that they're serving.
Yes,
so
I was talking about that today.
Connection from individuals from an educational perspective to the children that they're working with every single day. So once I then know the condition and I understand the responses that may happen as a consequence to children going through adverse childhood experiences, my work is about, okay, what position do I want to take in being able to respond? So one of the things that I'm very keen and interested in is not just about doing antidotal assemblies, workshops with young people in the school. I actually, and that's what Solve is all about, is taking that to a next level, is okay, after the conversation in the assembly, what can I do with the teachers, the pastoral staff? What can I also do with the parents so they continue the message of what I'm talking about as it relates to these particular issues? So, for example, if you've got a child or young person, and I gave you a very simple example of aggression of what young people tell me when they're walking and trying to navigate in the community. So if you then have a teacher that's saying, excuse me, you don't do that. It's no different to them coming out of a house environment and someone shouting at them, and it's no different to a road that's also talking to them in a particular type of way. So when these youths then tough in a school context, because what you're doing is innating that trauma response. So when we talk about trauma-informed practice, which is a lot of the training that we provide, is about understanding the lens of trauma. And what you shouldn't be doing is trauma triggering children and young people whilst they're supposed to be having an education.
Yeah. I mean, what you just said about being able to talk to teaching staff, being able to talk to parents, and just that kind of response, if a teacher speaks to you a certain way, it's going to have an emotional or psychological trigger for a young person. It's so true. And it's like yesterday I was speaking to someone from the Department for Education, and they kind of gave me a carte blanche in the sense of saying, if you could change education, what would it be that you would do? I mean, like that's like the $1 million question, and there's so many different angles that you could come from it. But what I shared is, I would say I would definitely start working with teacher training, and I would make sure that all teachers have a greater level of training around emotional intelligence, around counseling skills, around how to work with young people. Because even though they have got the knowledge around the curriculum, they've got the knowledge around the syllabus and so forth, we are ultimately teaching people. And one of the epiphanies I had in my practice or my journey was when I realized that children are people first and students second. And that was mind-blowing to me, because it sounds so simple. It sounds like, of course, but the reality of it is, when you're in a school context and you're just looking at children as students, and you're looking at everyone that got their uniforms on, everyone looks similar and so forth, you can forget the humanity behind every child, because when you look at every child, they've got all the same uniform, but one child is a carer to their parent. One child, they're in foster care, they're struggling and overcoming some things. One child, they're going through something that is difficult right now, and they're all in different places as children and people. And I feel we need to have more insight to understand how to work with children and young people, to ensure that we're taking on board the humanity of them, as well as being able to educate them and develop them holistically. So in your thinking, when you think about, okay, you would train teachers or something, what are one or two things that you would focus on saying, if say there's teachers or there's social workers or there's professionals now listening, what could you share with them that would, what two things that would you share that they could add to their practice as soon as they go into the school environment that would add value?
It is a loaded question, and I'll contextualize it before I answer the question. And before I say what I was about to say, I was going to say we're actually in line, because when you got asked that $1 million question, I've been asked that question too. And I always say, one wish I would have is every teacher to have youth work training, because the tenets of youth work, emotional intelligence, interpersonal communication skills, the humanity side to working with human beings, separate to the science that you've been taught in terms of education. So when we talk about what are the two things that I think the education system or teachers or anyone that works with young people can benefit, I feel like the question suggests that teachers are to blame. And just hold with me for a second, because there's a political conversation that we haven't had yet. When the recession happened between 2009 to 2012, and David Cameron and the Conservative government came in, we predicted that when you cut services, what's going to happen is there's going to be an amount of pressure on a lot of the services, and education is going to be one of them. Yes. So I have to defend some of the teachers in context to that point, that what's happening now when we're talking about trauma, when we're talking about young people, having all of these issues that they're coming to school with, the burden now is upon the educational system to deal with, because a lot of services were cut back, youth and community services, children's services, policing within the community. There used to be policing in schools. You may remember Connections, you may remember Sure Start. So there's a whole host of services that have been disconnected here. So what I don't want to do is give a tokenistic answer to suggest that you do these two things and it happens. So I had to set that context first. So when we're talking about the things that we can do, I think that education needs to be one that garners an intersectional approach, that takes the insight and takes the position of the differences that people essentially come with. And you talk about, you gave an example of the different issues that a child and young people come through. So when I talk about intersectionality, it's not just looking at race, it's not just talking about class, it's not just talking about gender, it's actually talking about all of them. And it's also about those teachers bringing their uniqueness and their organic selves to the classroom. We are not robots. You're dealing with human beings that may have to deal with issues outside of the school. And that compassion, I know, exists amongst teachers, but I also know burnout also exists. So what I am going to say to the burnout part, on top of an intersectional approach to working with young people, is we need to recognize burnout. And I think we need to also recognize that we have the power to build children up, but also the power to destroy children. So if you are an individual that you're experiencing or feeling that you're getting to that point of burnout, my plight would be to try and find a medium and a way to switch off, to find a way in order to process your thoughts and your feelings, because children are sponges. And I remember being at school, and I won't say the teacher's name, but she used to come with a bad attitude, and I don't know what was going on in her personal life, but I had to absorb that every single day. And I'm here to learn. And this is a tutorial before the sessions even start. And you've got this stink attitude, and I've come into the class, and you don't know that I've just walked from 6 blocks where things get busy in the area where I grew up, and I've made my way to school and got here safe and sound, and hoping my mum and dad will be happy that I'm here. And you're giving me that energy. So I'll go back to my point about having that intersectional approach, and that intersectional approach includes culture. You need to understand the people that you're serving. You need to understand the people and the environment in which they're serving. So just driving into your community and going to a school and then going out, take the time to maybe go to the local food shop or speak to the local pharmacy or whatever it is in the local community to get a real contextual understanding of your community. So rather than me giving you a long list of things that need to happen, it's one about acknowledging there is a political thing that's happened that's created the issues that we see in present day within schools, having an intersectional approach that's holistic, that's informal, that develops agency, that helps children to be self-determined, but it's also recognizing you as an individual, as a human, that if you've got issues that cause and create an environment, as I said, you have the ability to build children, but you also have the ability to destroy children through your words and actions.
Wow. I mean, there's so much that is said, and I mean, we're nearly a minute out, you know. Oh my gosh, we're nearly finished. I mean, this talk would have definitely gone on for next half an hour, and we probably need to even reconvene. And what you're saying is bang on in a sense of teachers are not to blame. I think so. I think the reality of it is so many parents leave the onus on teachers to develop their children and give their children social skills, life skills, social etiquettes. And a lot of times the parents are more responsible than the teachers, the reality. And I feel that there's a lot of social pressures right now that teachers are having to deal with, because there's a lot of things that are coming into school that really shouldn't be in school. But that's where we are in society at present, you know. So definitely, I feel it's important that we can prepare teachers and support teachers and encourage those that are working with teachers, that you can't just rely on teachers. And I think the children need to have more skill development. That's why mentorship is so important, because it's hard to be what you've never seen. And if you've got young people coming from all these different environments that they've never been coached in to become students and be in that environment, then it's going to be difficult. So we're nearly finished now. But I just want you. Yeah, I can see Sunny said yes, we should reconvene, and I feel we're going to need to get something in a diary. But I want you to just share before we go. People that want to find out more about your work, they want to find out about how even they can book you and get you in and so forth. Just share a bit about how they can get in contact with you.
The first place to just go is to my website. My name's on the screen, www.craigpinkney.com. It's a good way to just send me an email if you want to find out all the stuff that we're doing at Solve. Then it's www.solve.com, the Centre for Youth Violence and Conflict. But again, if you just type Craig Pinkney in LinkedIn, type Craig Pinkney in Instagram, type Craig Pinkney in Twitter, you type Craig Pinkney anywhere, you're going to see things pop up. And I guess the reason why I'm so active online is because you don't know who you inspire. And that's the reason why.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Craig, for being with us today. And thank you, everyone, for joining me and Craig on the Herman Stewart Mentoring Show. And look forward to seeing you in the next 2 weeks to have another guest. Take care.
All right, peace.